Thank you for joining Beyond the Workbench, a podcast where Odin Clack and Michael Magnus discuss life, business, and how to help entrepreneurs grow and innovate.
Well, it's good to see you again. It feels like, I know it's only been 2 weeks, but it feels like it's been much longer than that. It is a busy season.
I agree. It seems like it's been much longer than 2 weeks. I guess it just means we've had a lot going on. Usually we talk on and off between these episodes about all kinds of things and opportunities and ideas, whatever. And I think we've both been a bit heads down. I guess that's a good thing. I think it just means maybe the holiday season's kicking off with work and kids and everything else life-wise, right?
Yeah, well, you guys had a big event there with the Western Days and the tamale eating contest and whatnot. Tell me about that. How did that go?
Yeah, funny, I almost forgot about that. I think I had kind of blocked it out because it was such a big event. There was so much going on. The first thing, the tamale thing, which I'm always excited about, but it is a lot of work, that whole tooling, this massive belt, that went great. I was ahead of schedule. I wasn't as stressed with it. I did finish it, still finished it the night before because I kind of put some things off, some last minute touches, but majority of the work was done well in advance, which was great. I haven't found time to put out a video or any content about it just yet. Maybe it's that this week or next week, but the belt itself, great reception. People seem to really, really like it. Haven't got as much feedback on the two employee championship belts. I actually did 3 belts this year, the main one for the contest, and I did 2 like side belts for just the employee eating stuff, which I haven't got much on that, but I don't expect to because that's a different group. But overall, I'm happy with it. Everyone seems to be happy with it. Good videos coming, maybe. It's cool to see people respond to it, and kids want to hold the belt and being held up in pictures and things like that. So that should be a lot of fun.
Important question. What was the tamale record this year?
They did hit a new world record, and I do think it was like 97 or 98 tamales. Different guy won this year. Can you just imagine each tamale? I don't know, what does the tamale weigh? A couple of ounces. I don't even know how the guy walks around after that. This year, there's a gentleman by the name is Chestnut who won the competition. And that's not my world. I don't really know how those competitions work, but he was like hot topic. People were just going crazy because I think maybe Joey Chestnut was his name. He was here, and it brought a lot of people. There's a pretty large, sizable crowd out there just to come see him win, and he did win. So he's got the new world championship. But looking at pictures from the day after the competition, he looks like he's in just utter pain. Utter pain. He does not look like a comfortable man at all.
It's funny. I think sometimes about how niche leather work is, but it seems like there's probably a bigger audience than there is for tamale eating contests. Although that maybe it's huge. Maybe I just am ignorant to the amount of interest there is in it.
Well, don't think I'm fully in the know. I only know about it because of this one. And so they go to different competitions. So this was the tamale eating contest. There's a hot dog contest, corn dog contest. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on. They're just professional eaters. Who would have thought that was even a thing? But there is. So it's cool. The excitement. I can't say much about the contest itself. I would never do it, but it is cool to see all the people around the town excited. And they had one announcer this year who was just over the top, and I mean that in the best way possible. He was, and you would have sworn he was announcing, for the World Heavyweight Championship fight of the galaxy or something like that. The way he was really leaning into this theme of the tamales, and he's talking about the belt and how great it is, and how only the winners win. I mean, it's going on and on. I was like, God, I want this guy to do commercials for my business or something because he's so into it. It was a lot of fun.
And how was? Did you guys get a lot of foot traffic for the store?
Yeah, so those festivals here is kind of hit or miss at times. I tend to put more weight in the fact that we want people to come in the store and they're going to walk away knowing we're here and they're going to come back to shop later. We tried a few things, like we offer free shipping. If you buy anything during the festival, you may not want to carry it around with you. A lot of times people opt not to buy. They'll say, I'll come back later. Well, of course they don't. So we offer free shipping. That went over pretty well. It's a 2-day event. The first day was really, really hot. I mean, we were blowing our numbers out of the water compared to the first few years we were doing this. The second day, not as hot of a day. Something happened. I don't know if it was the weather or something shifted. It's hard to pick those things out. But overall, good event. We've already had people coming back. I mean, it definitely, I'm starting to feel the pressures of the holiday season building slowly. I feel also this drag from the whole economy, politics, and all that kind of discussion going on in the ecosphere right now. But it's starting to ramp up a little bit here and there. Corporations and our corporate partners are starting to do a little more. And I mean, we're stacked with big projects outside, so I can't complain about that. We've still got another 2.5 months to hit our numbers for the year because we're down right now, like most people. But all hope is not lost. We may squeak out, coming in even with last year. We'll see. What about you?
I think the last 2 weeks they've been busy, but largely with kind of it's been everybody else's turn. So we had regional choir conference, and Cara got 12th chair out of like several thousand kids. So proud of her for that,
Oh,
for sure.
outstanding. Very good.
So, and lots of good things, but just the struggle has really been finding the time to make progress, because there are times that my stuff is the priority. I have to make room for other people to be able to be the priority too. And
Yeah.
particularly when you have things like, yeah, even just passing sickness coming through or anything, it can derail your plans. And I'm fortunate that a lot of the things that I do are supplementary. So if there's a little bit of a delay or something, it's not as critical. But at the same time, keep looking at my to-do list, which things keep getting added and fewer things are getting off it. And so I'm ready for it to be my turn again to be able to tag back in and catch up with some of that. But a lot of those things on my to-do list are not necessarily work related. I have a 80-year-old great aunt, 81 now, that we help with a lot of things. And I went and visited her for a few days and got a lot of things off the to-do list that were, support. So I think it's easy to sometimes think that we're not being productive in our work because we're taking care of a lot of personal things, but often that's how you clear the way to have the clarity and the time to be able to really dive into the work stuff and not
Mm.
worry about other things falling through. So I think that's really kind of where the last 2 weeks have been, is not necessarily on projects as much as it is just taking care of life.
Yeah, that's a good reminder. I mean, it makes me think of I've given other people this advice over the years, which is run your own race. It's what's on your to do list and what's priority, what has to get done this year is based on what the priorities you set. It's not based off of somebody else achieved this, so I have to achieve it too. That's obviously always a losing a losing race. There's no way to win that one. So with that in mind, also you adjust your priorities as needed. Things come up, you maybe have the intentions of meeting some goals you set for the year, and if you fall short, well, maybe you fell short because some other things came up and they were priorities, and we should be happy with accomplishing those things. Now, everything I just said, please remind me of that in about 2.5 months when I'm panicking because I haven't hit half of my to-do list. But it seems like that's the way we should be looking at these things. I mean, life happens, and this work stuff is just in between, not life itself.
Having said all that, now that I start to think about it a little bit too, that I have gotten a couple things done, but a lot of them have been planning. And sometimes that feels like you're not getting anything done because you're laying the groundwork. But there really has been some progress and productivity. We've alluded to a couple new things in the works, and some of those are starting to make progress. One of my intentions for, hopefully by the first of the year, is to launch a platform that serves as more of a distributor for leather workers to be able to share their classes and patterns and whatnot. There's a lot of people that would love to share their expertise or their ideas, but they don't want to be in e-commerce. They don't want to do marketing. They want to be able to monetize their expertise without having to deal with that. And
Yeah.
that's kind of my expertise, is doing the e-commerce and the marketing piece. And so, there's been a number of conversations had around developing some of the content for that platform and some of the partnerships around that and the groundwork. And so just some really good conversations, some good reminders too. One of the people that I'll be working with, great artist, has taught a couple classes, is a little nervous about teaching some recorded classes because that's new, and new can be scary sometimes. And I reminded him, I said, hey, I hope you capture and remember this feeling, because a lot of the information that you're going to be sharing is going to be new to a lot of people and keeps us humble when we get nervous and we recognize the kind of the fear that we have because of the unknown. Kind of keep that in check a little bit. We kind of remember that when we're teaching others. I think that's a really helpful reminder of just kind of meeting people where they are and bringing them up versus trying to run and hope they can follow along. So,
Well, I mean, I'm really excited about this new platform you're working on, and all the planning you're doing. While there may not be a tangible output just yet, the planning you're doing is probably the most valuable because that's going to determine the quality of the output you finally get to. Which you said maybe early into this year, early next year. So you are, in fact, getting a lot done. I mean, I've been privy to some of the conversations you've been having about this, and I do think you've got a lot done in a fairly short period of time. But I understand, without having something to put your finger on right away, it can feel like things aren't moving forward. But I from this angle. I think you are moving forward. You're doing it at a pretty good clip too.
That's good. Maybe I'll take a break.
Well, don't take a break.
No,
Don't
no,
slow
no.
down. Maybe don't
No,
slow down, but
no, no. I'm
don't
just
lose
kidding.
momentum.
Well, that's reassuring to hear because I sometimes in those planning phases, when you don't have anything tangible, as you mentioned,
Yeah,
it feels like stagnation, and because you don't get that same dopamine response. Our brains are wired from caveman era to when you hit a certain checkpoint, you get a hit of dopamine because your brain lets you know that you're closer to hunting the buffalo. And planning does not always give you that same kind of light up in your reward center because you don't really hit those goals in the same way. And maybe that's just I need to set better goals around planning, manage expectations with myself. I will be looking forward to when I have something to be able to show everybody because excited for a lot of the things that are coming along, a lot of the partnerships with that.
it's gonna be really cool. We're excited about that. You do any traveling coming up? Any events you're going to? You and I talk about going to this event, that event. Anything coming up for you?
Probably not for this year. Family times are always hard. Pendleton's coming up. Would love to go someday, but it's always around Halloween, and I have a theater family, so that's like our Super Bowl is the wife and kids dressing up in costumes and whatnot. And so
But you're leaning in on Halloween, like you're ramping up. It's like a Super Bowl for you, and I'm like, I gotta get out of here. I don't want to have anything to do with Halloween. I'm
yeah,
that person. I'm the grumpy old man. Like Halloween, I was like, oh my gosh, I hate it.
I think I'm more of the willing victim. I don't know that I get quite as excited as everybody else does, but anyway, there are some great shows coming up, and hopefully someday I'll be able to make it to some of them. But a little bit more of a challenge right now. You just went to the Boot and Saddle Show in Wichita Falls. How was that?
It was good. The Boot and Soundmix show in Wichita Falls is one of those events I go to. So there's no classes. It's just a trade show. It's a show for vendors, and you go and you talk buy leather. And a lot of places where the actual boot and saddle makers, which I'm not, they go to buy materials. They go to buy tools. The show is kind of retreat a little bit. There's ebb and flows these shows. This is a really old show. I think it's been around 30 plus years. It's the annual boot and saddle maker show. 30 plus years they've been doing this, and so they may be in a little bit of a lull right now where maybe fewer people, there's fewer vendors this year, but still quality people. You've got the Berry Kings there, you've got the Double K Leather, you've got Herman Oak, you've got all these people there that you come to see at other events. So in that sense, it's almost like a little bit of a family reunion as well. It's nice to go in and see all these familiar faces and vendors you've been talking to for, in my case, for the last 10 years plus. The people who run the show, I always enjoy seeing them at the front. I only talk to them once a year at the front of when you check in and you pay your $5-10 to get in. But it's nice to see them, and there's this camaraderie and familiarity that you form over years. So that's always nice. This year, I got a chance to bring my guys with me. So Brandon and Drew, they came along. They got a chance to see some part of leather craft that they hadn't seen before. They don't normally see, and they bought some tools for their own workshops. And so it was a good day for us. It's like a half day. When we live here, like 8 o'clock in the morning, we're on the road back to Dallas by 1 or 2 o'clock. Didn't spend that much, which is good. Mostly it was just time spent talking and kind of running my mouth and sharing. I got a chance to spend some time talking to Don Gonzalez and Jim Linnell and Aaron and his crew and some of the leather vendors like Jeff Billard over at Thoroughbred, and the list goes on and on. That's the benefit to me, is just being able to maintain those relationships. And yes, I may buy a few bits of leather here and there, but we've been buying so much leather lately. We don't really have a need at the moment. I'm trying to trying to cut back on buying leather. In fact, I'm trying to get. I love my shelf out there to be down to almost nothing by the end of the year. It basically means that there's no cash just sitting on the shelf to carry in 2026, which would be great. But it's always a challenge not to buy this. I did buy a few hides here and there, few, not too many.
And I think that's one of the benefits of going to some of those slower shows sometimes. I say slower, the ones with a little bit less foot traffic, the ones that are a little bit more of the business customer. Because when you go to Sheridan or Waco or any of there is a line for the Barry King booth for any of these. And you don't really get to have many passing conversations because they're too busy taking money. And that's great. And you don't want to interrupt them. And so when you have people who are, maybe fewer customers, but customers that are making larger purchases, it creates some of those opportunities to have those conversations and chats and brainstorm and innovate and hang out a little bit and create relationships. But sometimes that's where new ideas or new partnerships or things could spur out of just having a couple minutes of things being a little slower. So
I'm talking about this from the angle of someone who went to go participate in the show and went to go walk around. So I can't, I don't know about the angle in terms of being a vendor and what they're selling and not selling. I don't know. But as a person visiting the show, it was nice to be able to walk through there and have these longer conversations, casual, not feel the pressure of, I'm chatting about last week what we did and didn't do. And there's some guy, almost shaking in his boots trying to get this purchase done so he can run to the next booth, the next booth, the next booth, right? So there's not that pressure. But I'll still go. Next year, I'll go. And I encourage anyone, if you are within a few hours of a drive, you should go. It's a good show. It's a good event. I'm just learning that all the different leathercraft trade events, they have their own personality. You have a number of people that go to every one of them, and you have some crowds that only go to that one. And so you get this mixture of people. So, I'll go again, and I'll bring my team again, and maybe next year I'll even do a booth. We'll see. They've been trying to get me to do a booth for years, and I still haven't done it yet. So if I don't get rid of some of these tools in my storage shed and my storage my unit, I will absolutely be going next year because I'll have to try to sell some of these tools. Because I've been acquiring more and more tools. The biggest one being is I just got another laser. I don't know if I had that last time we talked or not. I feel like we've had it for 2 weeks, but I'm just now kind of settling into it. So I got this massive upgrade laser. I went from like a 24-inch white laser. Now I got a 55-inch white laser in the back. I'm really excited about that. Capabilities with it is increased what we can do in the workshop, fourfold. I mean, it's really impressive. And it's so impressive that I liked it so much that I went and bought a third laser a week later. So that laser is sitting on a pallet in the back right now. I've been trying my best not to touch it until I get some other stuff organized. In fact, I spent most of the day working with I hired a handyman guy to come in and help me run new exhaust pipes and things like that. So that's been kind of the big effort around here the last 2 days, and I'm really excited about it. Lots more to come with that, doing a lot more videos. I did have a video guy to help me start this past Sunday, a local gentleman who works with the city. His name is Steve. He is now going to be working with me at least once a month, hopefully twice a month, to do some long format videos. You've been with me in the past where I've been admonished. I've been people
guilted, shamed,
loved on me, but also guilted me into like, why haven't you put out more videos in the last 4 years? And I'm like, yeah, you're right. So we have now got this ship moving again. We should have another, I think the very first video we'll get out is a shop tour video. Seems like an easy entry point back into the game. People can see, in fact, the very last video I did 4 years ago was probably me moving into the shop. So now we'll do a video of me having been here for a few years. That should be out in a week or so, and we're going to try to build momentum doing that. So we're going to end the year strong with videos, I think.
I'm excited to hear that because, yeah, absolutely. I've been. It's always funny. People get really excited. It's like, oh, I've watched your videos. It's great. I say watched because nothing's been out in a long time, and it's always such an exciting thing to meet you. And then there's like that little tinge of playful bitterness of what happened.
What happened? And then I feel bad because I was like, maybe people seem to be getting so much value out of them, but I haven't done this. That's on me. And that's a matter of just finding bandwidth to get them done. So instead of trying to do it on my own, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, and Steve is going to help me get these videos out once, twice a month.
Well, and sometimes in business, I think it's important to remember, I've heard it referred to as medicine and vitamins, right? Your medicine is the stuff that you absolutely need to have to thrive and survive, or you're going to get sick real quick. Your vitamins are the things that probably help, but if you miss them a day or two or here and there, it's not going to be, the end of your business. And so a lot of the things in the space, like making YouTube videos, for instance, I would say that they're vitamins compared to having a website functioning is a pretty critical piece of that business. So I'm glad although I am glad to see that you're doing them again. I think they have value for the community. I think it's also important to recognize our limits sometimes and recognize when it's time to take a break from those things. And then also when it's time to revisit them and dedicate the resources to them. So
I think once I get going on this again, it will be easier, right? Just because we get on this call, we talk, we're on camera. Now we're on camera, which is freaking awesome, right? We're YouTube. I won't skip over the fact that this is a new thing for us. I think this is maybe the second or third episode we'll have out there on YouTube, but that's a new thing. But they think we talk, or they catch me talking at one of these events, they think I'll talk. I actually am more of an introvert and a hermit. So the idea of sitting in front of a camera, trying to teach or share something is always a bit of a push. It's hard to get me going. But once I'm there, it's okay. Right. But I am trying to eliminate the obstacle by Steve being the guy. And so what I am good at, if I tell Steve he's going to be here Sundays at noon, we're going to film for 5 hours, I'm on the hook I'm paying Steve, right? As well I should. I mean, he does good work. I'm on the hook to make sure I'm prepared, ready to go. And no matter how well I'm feeling or not feeling, engaged, not engaged, I've got to make the most of that time with him. I don't want to waste his time or my money. And so that will help me a lot. Plus, he'll do a better job editing than I will also.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing to recognize is not only where our strengths are, but what are the things that don't require our expertise, and what are the things that we can even kind of let go. And if somebody can do it 90% as well, is it going to still have the same impact at the end of the day?
Yeah, constantly being taught that lesson. I'm experiencing that lesson over and over and over again as we go through this, this thing we call business. We're growing it. It's not everything needs my hands on it. Even if I have a good idea, and I think my idea is freaking awesome, but it's of no value if I can't get it done.
Yep.
Someone else's idea that can get done and they can do it right now is worth far, far, far more. Let's just get out of my way, me get out of my own way, and let them have it. Let them take care of it for me, and trust that they've got the brand and leather goods and best interest in heart, and they always do. So we've got a good team. We say it all the time. I just got to let them work.
A hard thing to remember sometimes that perfect is the enemy of done.
Yeah. I have a mentor. His take on that was a plan B or C idea that we do and we do well is worth far more than a plan A idea that we never start. And I do believe that. We had a topic tonight. I mean, you had a really great topic you sent over to me, and I think it was really timely. It was simply, the value of failure. And we can go that and we can take that in so many different directions, but I think you had a unique take on it. And I just want to see, what does that mean to you? What's your angle on the value of failure?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. Of all things that I could have tried to make recently, when I was in East Texas, I visited my uncle, and he was lamenting that his belt was falling apart. And I was like, "Oh, I can make a belt. If Odin can make a belt, I can make a belt." I have not made a belt. Well, I will tell you, the last time that I attempted to make a belt was with George Hurst. He has not been with us for a number of years, so that should maybe contextualize that it's been a while. I've been a part of teaching a lot of classes and whatnot, but as far as actually time at the bench, I don't have as much. I can tell you all day long. I can regurgitate the finer points, but as far as getting down and doing it, and so at one point I was like, yeah, Zane and I are going to do this together, my 7-year-old, because this will be like a fun project to have this experience to make the belt together. And he did help a little bit. But one of the things that I realized pretty quick in that is that I was something I was hiding behind. I was like, well, if Zane makes a few bevel marks and then it doesn't look good, it probably was something the 7-year-old did, not my work. Although I did end up including him in the process, and I didn't lean as much into that as maybe I had originally thought I would when I realized I was creating a scapegoat for things not being perfect. I went and I watched a few videos online, went back to the basics, right? Watched some Don Gonzalez videos on how to make a belt. But I'm doing it here in pockets of time. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to skip 5 minutes and see the next point and probably miss a lot of context. And at some point, it was like, okay, I need to just do it. I can watch a lot of the content, and maybe I should. And there's probably mistakes that I, would have avoided had I spent the time fully watching the video, several videos, pieces of videos. But realistically, I am the type of person that learn more from making the mistakes, because I learned why those mistakes were made. And so, did things probably out of order. And in the hand sewing, it's not perfect because I don't have a sewing machine. And, there's just a number of things that I learned through the process that I was like, and I think we even talked about this when we talked to Ryan, that sometimes when you plan to make something the first time, you have to plan to make it twice, because the first time there's going to be the learning curve. And fortunately, this isn't something I'm selling. It's something is just kind of a gift to a family member. You want it to be good, but at the same time, he more was looking for something that was going to fall apart. And so it's sturdy, but there's lots of little things. Like I have it here if you would like to see my
Yes, I
belt.
do.
So, but there's lots of little things. Like I tooled his initials there, and
Yeah, give us the finer details. Tell us more. I got to know. Tell me the details about this belt.
well, I will tell you all the things I screwed up on this belt, because that's the purpose of it. But I've watched other people make them, and there's lots of things that I retained by doing it, and then understood why they did it that way. And then even now, if I go and watch those videos, I'll be like, okay, that's the way I correct the mistakes that I've made. But sometimes, at least for me, I feel like I have to have the experience of having fumbled through it, that kinesthetic piece of it, to have worked through it once for that other guidance to even make sense. There's lots of little things like give dye time to dry before you flip over the belt. Even the hand stitching. Eventually, I did get in a rhythm of some of the stitching. You can tell kind of here, if you're watching the video, it's a little bit better than maybe here. And the tooling is, not perfect on just trying to get those initials on the inside of the belt. But if I went and made another belt today, it would be a lot better. Now, I think that's the key, right? If I make this belt and I make a lot of mistakes and I learn from those, and then I watch a video and I'm like, aha, that's how it's made. Or I then go back to the Belts Galore book and I'm like, oh, okay, this makes a lot more sense. It only becomes sticky if I then do it again. The
Right.
problem I often will have is say, I made some mistakes. I learned from it, noted, and then I won't do it again for a year, 3 years, 5 years. And then I go back and I make the exact same mistakes again. So I think that's a piece of that learning. And I think it's an important investment in development of skill is taking the opportunity and giving that grace for making mistakes, not intentionally, but making the mistakes with the purpose of learning. My wife is an elementary school teacher, and it always sounds so corny to me. And then I find myself repeating it. But when she has students, she's like, oh, well, when you fail, all that is a first attempt in learning. And I'm like, ugh. But here I am talking about it, repeating it to business owners, because it's a valid kind of gut check of, there's things that I probably could have done. I probably could have asked for help. But even if I'd come to your shop and you had walked me through it, I would have made a perfect belt, and not really, I wouldn't have the machines that you have next time I tried to make it at home. For me, that was kind of an important piece of all of that, is to make the mistakes. Again, it's kind of silly, but there's all these lessons that we learn even from things like the magic school bus, where Miss Frizzle teaches us to take chances and make mistakes and get messy. And those things, it sounds like good advice for kids, but I think we could all probably learn a little bit from Miss Frizzle in our leatherworking businesses.
Yeah, as we're talking, I mean, so many things come to mind. And, I think about the dopamine hit that we talked about earlier. I'll do it something one time, and either I fail and I don't get the dopamine hit that I think I'm constantly looking for, and so you set it aside. You said you'll come back to it, and you never come back to it, or I get the dopamine hit because I've achieved something at some level, right? And then it's like I don't feel driven to go back and do it again. For me, if I'm doing something, I say the goal is to, maybe it's a belt. We'll use that example. The goal is to develop a new style belt for production for the store, right? So I tell myself, I have to tell myself, hey, we're going to make this 3 times. We're going to make it 3 times. The first one is not the goal. It's the third one that's the goal, right? So it keeps my head in the game long enough to go through that entire process. And so setting the goal that way. Or it could be like, I've got a briefcase design that I've been working on for a few weeks now. And I say only a few weeks because it's been sitting back there for a few weeks since I last touched it, right? The day I started working on it, I got like 80% of the way through the bag and I haven't touched it since. But the goal should be to make that bag 3-4 times, because that's what I know it takes to get it ready to go for production. I mean, I've got to fail through it. I'm looking for the mistakes, right? Let's experience the mistakes up front so that we don't have to worry about them later. It seems like there's some value in telling yourself that mentally and saying, no, the point is the mistakes. The point is to learn from what you're doing. The point is to go through this learning curve. I mean, I'm experiencing it we talk about laser. I'm experiencing it with the laser right now. It's going to be very frustrating for me. I went from using the laser very proficiently, this previous platform. Now I moved on to this new platform, and it's a little bit of fumble. It's up and down, make mistakes. It's not as easy as it used to be. I'll figure it out, but if I'm not careful, I'll get discouraged and I'll just set it aside, and I'll go back to what I was doing, which is also not as good. So there's definitely value in failure. I like to think that when we do fail, though, is making note of what those failures are and what the adjustments were. I know whenever I'm doing a pattern for anything, part of my process is I design it, I make the paper pattern, whatever, and I'm scribbling all over the pattern scratching this number out, putting another number and notes all over it so that I'm recording the failures, what worked, what didn't, so I can adjust it later. I've done in the past where I haven't done that, and I'm just failing again and again and again with no improvement, right? That's obviously not the goal. I mean, it's fail with improvement in mind. So failure has to be part of the process. I think we have to welcome it. We have to realize that it's the point of the topic. There's value in failure. There's great value in failure, and be accepting of it. Just take it in.
Yeah, and I've been a part of several tech startups and whatnot. And in that environment, there is a bit of a mantra of fail fast, fail forward, fail often. Because if you're not failing, you're not doing anything new. I remember actually one of my directors at one point quoting something that had been told to him, that he was really nervous that he was going to break the website by making some changes. And it was told to him, if you're not breaking anything, you're not doing anything new.
Yeah, yeah, very true.
Something to that effect. And so I think that it's important to do that, because if not, we too often get paralysis by analysis and overthinking it, and then we just don't get anywhere. And sometimes the just ripping off the band-aid and doing something, knowing that it's not going to be perfect the first time, is an important part of that. And the other thing that happens sometimes to us too, this is a weird analogy, but it's timely. We went to a birthday party. This is like birthday party season for us, for the younger kids. And they went bowling. And my daughter was like, I always do better bowling in the front half. And then in the second half, I always get worse. And it's like, well, what happens is you're excited and motivated, and then either you get bored or a 7-year-old is beating you and you get frustrated. And so you're like, well, now I'm just going to, I'm just getting through it. I'm just finishing it because I'm obligated to finish it and I don't want to. And I'm no longer trying. I'm no longer trying to learn from mistakes. I'm just trying to rush through it and get finished. And to be fair, I had some of those moments with this belt too, that I was like, you know what, I've messed up enough. I'm ready to just go ahead and start on the next one. Let me just speed through this. And I had to kind of stop myself and remind myself that, like, well, if I do that, I'm going to get to the same point better, and then I'm going to make all those mistakes in the second half. So let me make all the mistakes on one. So when I make the next one, I can be a little bit more intentional all the way through.
I can definitely imagine hand stitching that bill. In my mind, I can process where all those points were, where you're like, this is my 1,000th stitch, and you start to loosen up and you don't pull your stitches aside because you're comfortable, which makes me think about this other part of this whole equation, which is being comfortable is the start of our demise, right? I mean, however you want to say it, but when we get comfortable, whether because we're not paying attention to the details anymore, or we're not pushing ourselves to break anything, or we're comfortable in not failing day to day. And so we just kind of hang out where we are, but it means we're not growing either, right? If I'm just doing the same thing, I'm just relating back to Odin and Magnus in my shop, but if I'm not just doing the same thing over and over again, I made thousands of these same bags over and over, we're comfortable with it. I know where to pay attention, where not to pay attention. I can probably do a lot of it with my eyes closed. I'm comfortable. And I can sit there for a very long period of time, or what I should be doing is get back in there, design more bags, struggle through adding these new techniques or adding these new elements to these bags that I haven't done before, because you would think that I'm getting better in time, not worse in time, right? I should be challenging myself. I should be challenging the workshop. And if I'm not challenging us, we're basically just being comfortable. Yes, we're not stressed, but we're also not growing, which also means we're just dying on the vine. Which makes you think Misty Shaw over at Illume, she had a saying that we arrived at this point where we feel like we've made this accomplishment, we're comfortable in where we are, and that's where we start to devise. That's where the fruit starts to decay on the vine at that point, right? In fact, you've got to pick it, and you've got to get back to the next thing as quickly as possible. If not, you are comfortable, but really you're dying on the vine, and that's I think a very tough thing for a lot of us to do, business owner wise. I mean, I even think about the fact that we have access now to materials that we didn't have access to before. It used to be when I was first starting off in my garage, I had to be very judicious about how I would jump into a new project. I had to be very deliberate. I'm going to do this bag. I'm going to try this bag out. I've got to get a good result out of it because this is the material cost me money. Now I have a lot more material. It doesn't hurt as much. And, we don't want to be wasteful around here, but it doesn't hurt as much to waste a part of a hide in trying something new. And if it doesn't work out, okay, we toss it away and we start all over again, right? That comfort can really hold us back at times. We're not being as careful as we should. We're not being as detailed as we should.
I think that's maybe a whole episode too, is just talking about the design process for production, because you design bags, but during the day, I help design software solutions, and
Yeah.
a lot of that product design thinking is probably pretty similar. I think there's some interesting things to be shared there. Speaking of somebody kind of getting out of their comfort zone, we had somebody write in, and we love when you guys write and share questions. I want to answer those as part of the show, because if you have those questions, chances are plenty of other people do as well. And so Spearheaders wrote in and said, absolutely loving the podcast. Seriously, the topics are spot on. What I've been needing. Here's a question that I'd like to hear you guys discuss. Retail merchandising and marketing, which we could do an entire episode about that. Probably actually bring your lovely wife on. They share, I'm opening a very small 300 square foot retail space soon. My grand opening is in October. I'm in a little strip mall that has some salons and small businesses, but no other retail, not much foot traffic. A little hard to find, but rent is insanely cheap, so I'm willing to make my own traffic. What advice would you give? I feel like you're more qualified to answer that one. I'll share my 2 cents, but for somebody just trying to get a brick and mortar going, particularly in the age of online stores, what are the ways that you would advocate that they kind of get started and drive business? What's the value of having a brick and mortar in that scenario?
The value of a retail store for him, for me, or many other people is not always just getting people in the front door. That is one, but the other value is just the marketing. There's something to be said about when a business says, hey, I've opened up, I put my shingle out there, I've opened up business and you can come see me here. It legitimizes you in some ways. Again, not to insinuate that if you don't have a storefront, you're not legitimate. I'm not saying that, but it does give you something you can use as a trading card almost. Like, oh, come see me here. I have a storefront here. It's kind of like authors do this all the time. It's like, I'm an author. Little do most people know that they sold 3 books in 3 years, but hey, they're still an author, which gives them some credibility, right? So now I'm a storefront owner. I have a store. You can come see me there. It doesn't really speak to how successful your store is or is not, but you can use it as a marketing shingle and they help. So there's something there. There's also obviously something about, moving outside of your home. Lots of pros and cons to this. Great value to being at home. I wish I was at home many times. But one of the values of not being at home is you separate your work from your home life. And that is something that some people really need to do. Okay, so there's that. So there's great value there, workshop space, whatever. 300 square foot workshop, that's not a small shop. I mean, it's small, but it's not like insignificant. That's space to move around. And one of the questions was, how do you bring people in because they don't have a lot of traffic there? He or she has already overcome some of this challenge, which is knowing that just because you open a shop doesn't mean people are going to show up. This isn't Field of Dreams. A building they will come. No, that is absolutely not how it works. For the people that have that type of attitude, they have a lot of capital put into buying really expensive storefronts in very expensive neighborhoods and areas. Maybe it works for them. But for most of us that have to be a bit more budget minded, we're not building $1 million storefronts, right? Where traffic is already just built in. No, it is build it and then talk about it and share it and go over and over again. I would like to think that if this customer, this gentleman or lady has their business now, they are making this a core part of what they're talking about, part of the story. Come see me at my storefront. I'm doing this at the storefront. I would be taking every opportunity possible to create events and things that draw people in. Happy hours, host social events, host anything, host classes, host anything, so you can get content and show people that there's activity, energy in this space, and you want to be a part of this energy as well. That's how you leverage that space. Foot traffic, walking by the front door, maybe that will never be there. I don't know, right? They would know, obviously. But if it's not, that doesn't mean you can't be successful. It means that you just got to generate your own. And I would take every opportunity possible to do things and host classes and events and content that brings people in. Invite people from the city. Invite people from your neighbors in. I don't know who your neighbors are, salons. Do things for them, but help them generate traffic for you, right? And then, of course, be a great neighbor. Help generate traffic for them. Give as much to them as you want people to give to you. You're leveraging now the store and this retail space as another tool, essentially, right? It is not build and they will come. It is use it and use it and use it and talk about it. And then people will start knowing that you're there. And when people aren't there, still keep working, keep grinding.
You touched on something I think is pretty important, and that is, how do you get visibility with the community that is there already, right? Yeah. If there's a barber shop, can you make a strop with their initials on it for them to hang in their shop, that if somebody says, hey, I really like that, like, oh yeah, the new guy 2 doors down, put that in. There was a distillery that just moved into your neighborhood and you made some custom coasters for them with their business on it and whatnot. So there's a lot of those different opportunities that you could even turn those neighboring businesses, which have nothing to do with leatherwork, into advertisement for you by just kind of being a good community partner there. I will supplement some of that with some of the kind of cautionary tales to kind of keep in mind. Number one is make sure you have good insurance, because anytime you're in a strip mall, you run a bigger risk of things going missing in mass, right? So, do you have the mechanisms in place that if somebody wiped out your store, could you continue doing business? You hope that doesn't happen, but let's say best case scenario, you get a ton of foot traffic. There's a lot of people who are real friendly and they may not necessarily buy something, but they'll come and hang out for an hour and a half and drink your coffee. And
It is a problem. It's not a problem. It's a challenge.
yeah, it's a challenge because that's an hour and a half that you're not making anything else to sell, and you want to be friendly. And so I guess, how do you deal with that? You have a team, you have people who will set boundaries for you now, but when you were new and in the shop, and how do you kind of strategically handle just the really friendly people who want to come in and have a conversation, but being able to manage expectations about still getting things done without being rude?
So what you're mentioning is a real problem. And so before I answer, I'm going to go back and say, opening a storefront, it brings its own unique set of challenges, right? It's definitely not. I've arrived and all of a sudden the world opens up and it's my oyster and it's going to be great and horns are going to trumpet from the heavens are going to trumpet every time I walk in the store and sales. It's not like that, right? It's really something you got to work, and it requires you to be on. It requires you to be focused. Not only will you get distracted with customers coming in, which means you're not working, because I'm assuming this is a one-man operation or one-woman operation. They're by themselves. You'll get distracted by people walking in, but you'll get distracted by doing stuff related to the storefront itself. Like, I'm going to go clean the windows today. I'm going to go put a sign in the window. All these different things, auxiliary things that are related to the business, but aren't necessarily related to making. Right. So you've got to be really clear about what drives your business forward and make sure you have goals in mind every day. I'd like to think that you, or anyone else who walk into your space every day and say, what must I get accomplished today? Here's my priority list. Here's the 3 things I have to get done. And come hell or high water, nothing can stop these things. And these are the other things that would be great to get done. Right. But you can't spend your entire day at the storefront talking to customers and not getting any work done. Now, you also can't be a jerk and be unwelcoming to people that come in and want to talk to you. You've got to find some balance. And some of that may be, hey, you got to open up, have set hours. For us, my guys get here at 7. Well, one guy gets here as early as 4:30 in the morning at times, right? And from 4:30 to 10 is when most of the work is going to get done, right? Because then once I get here and Randy gets here, things slow down because we're a lot more talking. And for me, I get most of my workshop stuff done after 7 p.m. because I want the workshop to be available for my guys, but also because while I'm here, I'm doing the business stuff during the day and I'm talking to customers during the day, mainly because I don't want the customers having to talk to my guys in the back so they can work and they can keep moving forward, right? And it is impossible for me to think I'm just going to come here and ignore every customer that walks in the door. That said, there is times where I know I have meetings, I have things I have to get done, my door's closed. When my door's closed, I have it established that, I'm just unavailable. When doors open, I am very much so available. I'll walk outside and talk to any customer who comes through. And I also have to train myself that when I hear things, this is a big one for me. Now, I do have a team here. When Riley or Rochelle is talking to a customer outside in the retail space, and I can hear them, and I hear them talking, and maybe I hear something, I want to say, oh, I have something to add, or oh, we can do that, or what about this and what about that? I have things I feel are valuable to add. I have to train myself to say, no, keep your mouth shut. They've got a control. They will let you know when they need your help. That is a tough thing for me. That was very tough. I'm very good at now. That was a very tough thing for me to do, is not to have to chime in on every conversation because I feel like I know more. And in many cases, I do. I know what the leather is. I have all these ideas and options. But every time I chime in, it takes me away from something else I need to be doing and they need me doing. As a business owner and leader here, they need me focused on doing the books. They need me focused on doing the website. They need me focused on all those things. So all of us can get paid at the end of the day, right? And if I chime in just because I have something to say about this custom built this random person wants, well, then it takes me away. They can handle it. They don't need me out there every day. And so we have established this nonverbal communication where it's like, hey, if I hear a tone shift in the way they're talking to a customer, or they will come to my door and ask me for assistance, that's when I get up and I'll go talk so I can stay focused. And so those are things you work out. But you have to do that whether it's with you or a team or with it's just you by yourself. Maybe decide that you're going to be in the workshop or you're going to be in your storefront every day at 8 a.m., but the store doesn't open until 11.
That's what I was going to say, like maybe like showroom hours of 2 to 6 or something. And if somebody drops by and knocks on the door and you want to let them in, like you have that option. But being able to have what your open hours are may be part of the strategy of kind of setting boundaries around making sure that you can still work in the business as well as on the business.
Because working in the business and on the business, those are both priorities. You have to fit in. It can't just be one or the other.
I think that's good, and hopefully that's helpful. I think there's a lot more that we can talk about in that, and I'm sure we will. I'm sure we'll think of other things. But as we start to wrap up for the evening, I know we'd like to talk about, is there anything new or interesting that you've stumbled upon that helped you learn something interesting in the last 2 weeks?
I like watching YouTube. I mean, that's often what I have playing in the background. And I stumbled across this channel that I have found it's really great. It's fascinating. It goes hand in hand with what we're talking about here. It's not leathercraft related, but it is business related. This is a gentleman who, I guess on his own dime, I guess he does some consulting, maybe some VC work here and there also, but he basically goes and he does these postmortems on businesses. Like what happened to Panera Bread? What happened to Sears? Why did Sears go out of business? What happened to Peloton? Peloton was a jewel of a company to invest in for one period of time. And then after COVID, things kind of crashed on them, right? Well, why is that? What lessons can we learn from these big companies that maybe we can apply back to our own small businesses? I found it immensely valuable, and I think other people will. So the channel is, I'm looking at right now, it's Michael Gurley. Michael-Gurley. You can look him up. I guess he has a YouTube channel called Gurley's Letter. And he basically just going through these business essentials, things you can learn from these businesses that have gone through challenges. Cracker Barrel was the big one. He just did one on about 2 weeks ago that was in the news recently, but he's done Chipotle, Fry's Electronics. Everybody remember Fry's? Fry's was the place we all went to get all of our electronic stuff for a period of time. He's done a little bit of a deep dive on what happened to Fry's. Why did they grow so big? And we loved them. And then all of a sudden, they're out of business.
I feel like I saw that recently, actually, now that you say that.
I've been sharing a lot of his stuff to LinkedIn and some other channels because I have found it so useful. I know there's other knuckleheads like me out there that loved listening to these type of stories. And so yeah, I would encourage it. Michael Gurley, Gurley's Letter on YouTube. We'll put a link in the show notes or whatever. I think people really get a lot of it. And like the person just opened the storefront, this is what we should be listening to. These are great reminders. I'll tell you one of the biggest reminders I've got out of this. These are all brands that have these very charismatic, upfront, pushing their persona and their name in the front of their brands. They're these leaders and owners, right? Well, that's kind of like me. I'm leader owner. It's called Odin Leather Good, right? Odin Leather Goods. There's danger in having a business tied so closely to one person's persona. If I get out there tomorrow and go crazy with my politics, or I don't know, I do something, I get a DUI or whatever it is, I end up in the news because something crazy I did, totally unrelated to the business, but it's my name. It has a dramatic, in this case, negative impact on this business. That is a danger, something we need to pay attention to. And as we grow Odin Leather Goods, we need to find ways to separate me from the business. So the business has legs and can thrive and grow even without me one day. Whether it be something I exit on my own, or God forbid, I do something dumb one day and I get flack for something. The business still needs to grow because it's accountable to other people, not just me. So those are things that I take from a lot of his little lessons he talks about. It's a good channel. People should check it out. That's my resource and my share for the week. What about you? Anything that's come across your desk?
Yeah, there's actually a book that I was reminded of recently that I never read, but there's an app called Blinkist. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but they have like 20 to 30-minute summaries of books. And so when the weather gets a little nicer, sometimes I'll go for a walk and listen to a summary of a whole book, while just kind of strolling around the neighborhood. And there's one that was written by a pair of brothers, the Heath brothers, that they've done a couple of books, Made to Stick, a few others. And this particular one was called Switch, I believe. I remember listening to it through Blinkist and thinking I need to go back and read that, and haven't. But I was talking to somebody recently and was reminded of kind of the core lesson in that. And actually it ties into a lot of the things we've discussed today. And it's this analogy of the elephant and the rider. And it has to do with creating good habits and the kind of the scenarios in which we're able to create those habits. And so the metaphor is that, the rider is kind of our rational brain. It's the person who's trying to steer the beast, so to speak. And you can have a really, really trained rider. And you can have a lot of rationale, but if you have no kind of training in the elephant, so to speak, even the best riders are going to fail. Right? Even the most rational approaches, without having some kind of check on the emotional piece around everything, which the emotion is powerful and it's what drives us to be motivated, right? But you could be really rational, and have no motivation and get nothing done, right? And so having a well-trained rider on an elephant that knows how to behave. But then maybe the third thing that's part of the analogy that I think is important and a lot of us ignore, I'm probably doing a terrible job summarizing this. I encourage you guys to go read up on the elephant and the rider. But the third thing that I think is we always think of how much control we have over our own behavior. But the third is the path. An untrained rider on an unruly elephant on a well cleared path can still be successful. And so there's things all the time that we think of that, oh, I'm trying to diet. Let me not have snacks in the house, right? But there's probably a lot of business equivalents of those two about just having tidy workspaces to do things like accounting, because that's not a thing I want to do. So I'm going, if I have anything that I can distract myself with, I certainly will. And so kind of training, not only training yourself, but also creating pathways that are easier for you to be successful in managing routine and habit and things like that. And one of the things I think actually what spurred it coming up recently was the idea of saving money is not necessarily something that gives us immediate reward, because it's I'm saving money for this trip in the future or something like that. And so it's hard to get excited or motivated about, hey, I'm not going to go out to eat tonight because I need to be healthy or I need to save money, whatever. Right. And so in the book, it uses the example of this couple that anytime they didn't go out to eat, they put $50 into an account to go to Jamaica. And that was exciting. And so it became a choice of, do I arbitrarily go out to eat, or do we maybe eat something we already have? Maybe it's not, maybe it's boring, but we're getting this dopamine hit, we're getting this reward, we're getting this excitement because we've built something that creates, and that's in this case, the path that makes it easier to make good decisions, right? And that was the context in which it came up. But, every time I circle back to that general idea, it becomes one of those things of, where else can I apply these principles in my life? What are the things that I'm not getting done that I should, the planning or execution that maybe I'm not getting around to in the way that I need to? And when that happens, where's the failure? Is it in the rational? Is it in the writer? Is it in the emotional, the elephant? Or have I created a poor environment for myself to be successful? And if so, sometimes the cleaning up the environment is a great place to start and making things easier on yourself in business and habits and health and life and relationships. And so that's one that is on my to-do list to go back and, I say, read. I own a great many number of books, and they're all trophies for audiobooks that I listened to at one point. But that's one that I do need to revisit and go in a little bit more in depth in.
I've given over to the whole audiobooks. It's just what I'm gonna do. I'm not gonna buy the books anymore. I'm not gonna say I'm reading it. I'm just gonna go and download the audiobook right now, because I know I have credits with Audible. At least I get it in my library. I can start listening to it next time I'm sitting at the tool bench or whatever. Even as you're talking, I was writing notes here on this podcast. I won't say what all the things are, but I was like, yeah, there's definitely some things, some environmental things we could set up, and some process we could set up to help encourage us to do these things more and more personally, and also, here at the workshop. That's probably another topic also, is maybe we could share the areas in which we found some success with setting up these routines that we apply to our lives and our business lives, what we do. You, because you have corporate life and you also have non-corporate life, you have all these things, you have a lot going on. I'm sure you probably do have some processes in place, but maybe we can talk about some of the things that we know have worked, or even use it as a bit of accountability thing, where we say, this is where I know I should set up some processes. This is me now talking. Maybe check back every now and then and say, hey, how's that process going? Are you applying it? Are you keeping it going? I think it's a whole nother episode, probably.
You and I are probably both very self-aware, maybe painfully so. And so we can also probably share all of the things we've tried that didn't really work and why we think they didn't work for us. That doesn't mean they wouldn't work for somebody else, but just acknowledging where the hurdles were.
Yeah, painfully is probably the right description for that. It's very painful that I know this is the areas in which I'm failing daily, and I know the solution, but I just haven't been able to get myself to fix them just yet. It is painful.
Well, fortunately, I know a really great podcast to listen to that can help you with a lot of those things, Odin. So give it a listen, Beyond the Workbench. But
productivity coach to join us one day and tell us about some of these things, these low-hanging fruit things we can be focused on. I don't know.
yeah, I think that's great. Well, as much as I joke, we really do appreciate all of you guys. We've gotten some great feedback on the podcast just from individuals sharing this is valuable. And we love to hear that, not just for our own egos, but certainly that helps. But really just, we enjoy these conversations, but the more that we know what kind of things are helpful or that it is helpful, it certainly is motivating to keep doing them. Because I feel like every time we sit down and have a conversation, we come up with 3 new ideas of other conversations to have, and no shortage of things to talk about. But, we want to make sure, we want to hear from you guys. If you have feedback, good, bad, or otherwise, please share that with us. If you have questions, let us know. We would love to include those and address any of those specifically.
And for those that have been giving us support on Patreon, I really appreciate that. That helps a lot. Obviously, there's no pressure. We're going to keep doing this no matter what. But if you feel the need to, you feel inclined to support us on Patreon with any little bit or a lot or a little, it's there for you, and we appreciate it. And we'll have some special gifts, some content coming in the near future for that. But until then, you can like us, share. I think it probably helps us grow this podcast more than anything is your engagement, the questions Michael just mentioned, but also just the little thumbs up and down that you're going to see, especially on YouTube. Leave a comment there. Those are things that help push this thing forward. So thank you for those of you who are doing that. And if you're not doing it yet, highly encourage you to do so. And when you do, we appreciate it.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Beyond the Workbench. You can reach us on social platforms at Beyond the Workbench on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Also, check out beyondtheworkbench.com and listen to more episodes on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.